It is December. 2025 will be over in a matter of weeks, and that means it's time for me to review the goals I set for myself on 10 specific plants back 12 months ago in January. Show you how they're doing now, whether or not I achieved my goals or not. It's possible that I haven't, but I've done really well at others, so it's kind of fine. And yeah, just share the sort of progress on these plants. Before we get into it though, I want to say if you're new here and you don't know me already, hi, my name is Emma and I make houseplanty content all over the internet. So if you want to follow along with my houseplanty journey and maybe learn something along the way, stick around, watch more of my videos and subscribe to my channel. If you are not new here, welcome back. I really appreciate you returning. I do want to do a quick preface to these updates slash goal review bits and say that I don't know why I set goals. Like, I don't actually end up paying that much more attention to those specific plants than I do anything else. So I don't know, if nothing else, I kind of feel like this is a great way for me to look back on these 10 specific plants and see how they were doing 6 months ago and how they're doing now, and I can really watch them grow in a way that you don't quite realize when you're not taking pictures and videos of your plants constantly. I don't go back and review my old pictures, but this has forced me to go back and review what the plants were doing back 6 months ago, because I did a review 6 months ago, just to see if I needed to get my butt in gear with any of them. Did I do that? I don't know. But it is nice to be able to see that sort of progress, and I can show you that progress today so you can kind of see what's realistic, at least for me, for plants growing wise in my home, whether or not these things grow at an insane speed, because I swear some people's plants grow so fast, whereas mine might not necessarily, or they might, I don't know. So even if I don't actively pursue the goals throughout the year and think about them, I am still working on these plants all year long. So it's not like I just started ignoring them altogether, I don't think. But it's not something I'm conscious of working on these specific plants, if that makes sense. So I think that a lot of them have done really well, and you'll see the ones that haven't and why they haven't. I will talk about that as well. But without any more waffling on my part, let's just talk about these plants. So my first goal was to get my variegated Thanksgiving cactus established. At the beginning of the year, it was just a few tiny props that I had rooting in soil in my cabinet, and I really wanted to keep it going because I had previously lost some variegated Thanksgiving cactus before, and I didn't want to lose these ones as well. And 6 months in, they were looking pretty freaking good. Now, 12 months in, I believe I have established this plant. I am no longer worried at all that this one is just gonna randomly die on me, which is fantastic. I think it is doing so well. The things I want to mention though is the parts that are doing the best are the ones that are just solid green, but my plant has grown very interestingly in that some parts have gone solid green and some parts have gone fully solid white, and those are still growing. They are still just popping out blade after blade, which is great. They are just not quite as strong, I don't think. I do have some bits that are mixed in there, and those are my favorite parts of the plant for sure. And I kind of wish more of it was mixed. But at the same time, I am not mad at how far this one has gotten. I think it has done so well for me over this past year. I am no longer at all afraid that it is gonna just die. And actually, 6 months ago, I wasn't able to show you any sort of roots in the pot. But now, you can actually see some in there. This one's it's not dry, but it's kind of hard to see a little bit. And it's starting to put roots out down the bottom of the pot here. So I know for a fact it is very healthy in here. I am not worried about it in the slightest. And to be honest, I could probably pull that out of the cabinet at this point. And maybe I should, because one thing about Thanksgiving cactus, Christmas cactus, Easter cactus, all of the holiday cacti is that in order to bloom, they really need a temperature drop and sort of long periods of night, so darkness. And in my Millsbo cabinet, where this has been living for the past over 12 months. This one is not getting that. It is not getting the cool and the dark that it would need to bloom. And so if I want it to potentially bloom next year, I'm gonna need to move it into a different spot that's not getting as constant high levels of heat and light. I don't know if I'll carry this plant on in goals forward because I feel like I've gotten it to a really great place, but if I did, my next goal on it would be to get it to flower in the future, and hopefully I can make that happen. I just feel like when I show it to you from here, it looks so prominently green, but like there is variegation under there and like cool other bits. I promise. Anyways, I'm so pleased with this one. I think it looks so good, and I'm very, very proud of getting this one to do this well and like actually getting it to grow strong. So highly recommend this plant as well if you can get your hands on it. I know they're not really accessible still, but if you can, it's fantastic. Goal number 2 was to revive my alocasia black velvet. In January of last year, I had essentially a stem cutting propagating in water because it had just gone downhill. It only had one leaf. It was rooting in there, but it didn't look like much was gonna happen. By June, I was actually convinced I lost this plant entirely, but turns out I didn't. I had just popped it into my pond box as a stump with no leaf, and so like I couldn't ID it at that time. But since then, so in the last 6 months, it has grown 3 leaves, and they're actually doing quite well, which is amazing. Also, you can see all of those roots coming in there. I think this one has loved reviving itself in the pond box and really getting those high levels of humidity that one provides and constant access to water. I think it's been really great for getting this alocasia back. I highly recommend a situation like that for any sort of alocasia that you're trying to like revive. It's not 100% foolproof method, but it will be providing the best possible conditions for the plant, and as long as the plant doesn't rot, you're golden. So I am so pleased that I was able to get this one back. It's kind of crazy. I mean, this is the oldest leaf on it, and I think it's probably fading a bit, but the newer leaves are so velvety and dark and beautiful and are just doing fantastically. Also, it does look like there potentially will be more growth points coming off of that one in the future. That totally could happen. And because I thought I had lost this one, I did end up getting some corms from a friend who had a bunch, and so they just gave me a couple, and I potted them into semi-hydro here. And these ones have been living in my Millswell cabinet for the past 6, 7, 8 months and have been doing really, really well in there. Eventually, I would love to join these two together so I can kind of have one big full plant. There's no need for me to have 2 alocasia black velvets going on in my home, but because this one is in the pond box, it's not really like taking up any extra space or care. And so eventually when this one outgrows that space, joining it in with this one will be my goal, because having a nice big full plant sounds fantastic to me. And I think this one in general, the leaves are looking a little bit more mature, like in size and form. They're not terribly different size-wise, but the ones that have come from the corms are a little bit smaller, and like this one is just so compact as well. The pond box does have a grow light over it, which does help, but I am so pleased with how these are doing. These have definitely done a great job at not cycling too much. Yes, it'll drop a leaf here and there, but all of these have at least 3 or 4 leaves on them, and they're putting out new leaves regularly, and this one as well. For being a rescue mission, essentially, I'm pretty proud that it has 3 leaves at all, even if one of them is probably ready to come off. This next goal was a bit of a reach, but my goal was to successfully pollinate alocasias. And you know what? I just have not taken the time to do that this year. I haven't taken the time to really pay attention. I have had alocasias that have flowered over this time, but I just have basically ignored that goal. I've stopped trying. Whenever I see a flower on my alocasia, I'm not like, ooh, let me try and get pollen on that. I have not been paying attention nearly enough to make that happen. And I think my only excuse for this is that this year I had a weird lull in the sort of middle of the year where like I was just maintaining collection. I wasn't trying to like do anything crazy or exciting. I was just trying to make sure my plants were surviving as opposed to thriving. So I didn't really have the time or energy to focus on like experimentation and like trying new things or anything. So it just didn't end up happening. It is still something I would love to do down the line. If I can figure that out, it would be really cool. It is quite a difficult process, so I've heard online like the windows for collecting pollen and pollinating them are very, very, very small, and so you do need to like be very on top of it in order for it to work out. And so you've got to be like switched on, and this past year I haven't been switched on. So in the future I hope that I can make that happen, but unfortunately it's just not been a priority for me this year, and maybe I'll have a chance to do it next year. Maybe if I'm in a different space at some point, because as well, a lot of my big alocasias are in the office, and any plant that lives in the office, which surprisingly a lot of these plants that I had goals on do, which means I didn't actually focus on them as much as I potentially could have. But anything that lives in the office, I don't have access to that space every single day, all day, every day, because Joe works from home in there multiple days a week, and so I can't just go in and do whatever I want whenever I want. And I'm kind of just using that as an excuse to have not done it, but it's true, that's what happened. I just need to accept that alocasia pollination probably isn't in my wheelhouse yet. Maybe next year, maybe the following, but for now I might just pop that goal on the back burner until I feel like I've got more mental energy again. The goal that I've had for the past several years has been to get my Hoya Crimson Princess to bloom. This was the first Hoya I ever added to my collection. I grew it from cuttings, and for the past several years I have wanted to get it to bloom, and it just hasn't happened. And that's okay, but I always say it's going to continue to be on my goals list until it does happen. And unfortunately, 6 months in, it still hadn't happened, and 12 months in, it still hasn't happened. My Hoya Crimson Princess and Queen, in here I have both, the Princess and the Queen now, because I joined in multiple together. It hasn't done anything, and if you have watched my recent plant chores video, I was a little bit concerned about my Crimson Princess because some of the leaves looked like they were getting a bit of funky spots, and I was a little bit worried that it might be flat mites. Luckily, I couldn't find any when I was looking on the microscope, and so I don't think it is that's the issue. I think potentially the problem could be that I'm not watering this one enough for the location it's in. It is living in a southwest facing window and getting as much light as physically possible in my home from the sun. It doesn't have a grow light on it or anything, but like it can see the most sky out of all of the plants in my collection, and so I was hoping that sort of highlight situation would help it bloom, and unfortunately that just hasn't been the case, and it has just been doing a little bit worse than I would expect it to. It is still like growing, it is still thick in there, it is still alive, so I've not done anything too bad for it, and I think it has definitely gotten bigger since the beginning of the year and even from 6 months ago, but it just hasn't bloomed quite yet, and so maybe next year will be the year for it. Like I say every year, this is just going to be one of the goals I have until it happens, and so if I can't get it to bloom next year, it'll be there the year after and the year after and the year after. But I think this one is just a very, very special Hoya to me. And if I can get it to bloom, that would be freaking awesome. Really, it would be freaking awesome. But, you know, hasn't happened yet, and who knows if it'll happen in the future. I have also heard that the Crimson Princess are notoriously, like, not great bloomers. So maybe this is a bad one to have a permanent goal on. But I know it happens. I know they're out there. I've seen pictures of their blooms on Instagram, so I can only have my fingers crossed and hope that I can get this one to bloom eventually. The next goal that I had was for my philodendron splendid, and I really wanted to get it to size up in 2025. And it was looking super duper promising at the beginning of the year. I had grown the biggest leaf that I'd ever had on it, and 6 months down the line, it was still doing pretty well. I did end up chopping and propping it, and unfortunately those propagations, including the one with that nice beautiful big leaf, did fail. I was struggling with propagations in general. But since the last review, I did decide to chop the pole. I don't really have space right now to extend it, but I was able to chop the pole, and so it is a slightly more manageable sized plant. But it is doing so well. At the beginning of the year and even at the middle of the year, it only had 2 stems up at this sort of top of the pole place, and now it does have, I think, 4, nearly 5 sort of stems. And so the goal of it filling out is definitely there, and it's definitely sizing up as well. Like, I am getting beautiful big leaves out of it, but it is just going a little bit slower than I could want it to. I've also been like not the best at keeping this pole moist in the year. It's one of the poles that lives in my office. Like, it's quite dry right now, and where it's sitting, it is like the cup is like up there, and so if I want to water it, I need to like, I know I'm making excuses, but it's just not something that's happened for me, and that's okay. But I think going forward, I do need to add an extension to the top of this pole. That's kind of where it is going. I just don't have the space for another big pole at the minute. So I am just gonna have to see how it goes. I do have a little bit of room at the top here to put a little bit more moss in. I could definitely do that. But at that point, I may as well just extend the pole. So I don't know. Also, this one did get thrips in between June and now. And so it does have some damage on some of the bigger leaves in there. There is some thrips damage, but I have been able to get rid of them, I believe. And the newest leaves on it don't have that sort of damage, don't have any thrips on them. And so I feel like we are in a really good place with this one. And I have a feeling if I can get this pole extended in 2026, by this time next year, this plant is going to be huge. You know what I mean? I can just like feel it. If I keep giving it like good care and maybe stop ignoring it a little bit, it will do great things, because it is an absolute beast of a plant. So even though my goal was to get it to size up and it didn't size up, I have gotten it to grow into a fuller plant of the size it was. So I'm kind of not mad at the result of what's happened in the year. It just wasn't the exact goal that I had in mind. Another one of my longest term goals has been to get my cebu blue pothos to fenestrate. I've had this one on a pole for years now. It's actually the first plant that I ever put on a moss pole, and I am so proud of getting it to the point it was. Even in January this past year, it has grown so well for me. But I would love to get mine to fenestrate, and 6 months in, still hadn't happened. Things hadn't really changed all that much in that time. It was still looking quite good. It had gotten to the top of its moss pole. It was doing generally well, but it just hadn't fenestrated yet. And unfortunately, we are still in that place. Oh, it is just a bit of a shame that it hasn't fenestrated yet. There was a point where it was putting out quite large leaves in here, which is great. It is extremely rooted. Sorry, I'm literally hitting the ceiling with the moss pole. It is extremely rooted in the moss pole, which is fantastic. Oh, this leaf is broken. Okay, well, take that off. And it is doing quite well. You can see one of the things that I like to do, instead of, putting more moss in the pole, which would make quite a lot of sense, I tend to take it when it gets to the top and curl it back around, which probably doesn't necessarily help the fenestrations come in. But I haven't been able to get them. There has been one leaf in this time, which I think I had at the 6 month mark as well, because it has the precursors to fenestrations. It's got those sort of tiny pinprick holes in the leaf, but it's genuinely only one single leaf that has it, and it's not even the biggest of leaves. So I don't quite understand what's going on there. In the last 6 months, I have added this extension to the pole, and so I did give it that. I have a lot of room on this extension, and so maybe the next bet is to keep filling this up with moss and allow it to get taller again. Hopefully that'll help it potentially fenestrate, but this has just been quite a difficult one for me, and I think it is just this specific type of cebu blue. I think there's a few different varieties, and I know you can get some that are much smaller, like not even on a pole, that are already fenestrated. I know those are out there, but I want this one too, if that makes sense. And so hopefully I can get that to happen eventually. And if I can, brilliant. And if I can't, I mean, it's still a beautiful plant and I'm not mad at it. And it's one of my like all-time favorites. So I'm not gonna be mad. It's just like, if I could get it to do well, I would like that. Also, it is dry again. I need to water this moss pole more frequently. I need to water all of my moss poles more frequently. I need to get better at that again. I feel like in the wintertime, I just get really crappy at watering my moss poles, and this one is not an exception. So I need to moisten these up once again, get them nice and hydrated, and maybe they will actually do the things that I want them to do. Maybe. Next up, I wanted to stop neglecting my ficus shiveriana. For years, I had this plant and it wasn't doing all that much. I had it in soil. It was living. It just wasn't thriving, and I wanted to get it to thrive in 2025. And one of the main things I have done to make sure that happened, and I actually did this in the first 6 months of the year, was swap it to semi-hydro substrate and put it in a no drainage container, and that helped so much. I think part of the issue I was having with my shiveriana early on, and sort of my ficuses in general, is that I wasn't watering them as much as they might want, and so putting them in semi-hydro and giving them constant access to water with no drainage really helped get it going well in the 6 month time. And now I'd say we're doing pretty freaking fantastic here. I don't think it's grown insanely since 6 months ago, but it has just absolutely like boomed since January, and the sort of leaf size that I'm getting on it is so much bigger. It is so much bushier, and it has really been going. This one is also in front of quite a bright grow light, which I think has helped it like get going, and it is quite a thirsty one. It's actually thirsty right now. I should probably water it after I film this video, but it has been quite thirsty because it is getting so much light, and so it's doing really well, and I'm glad I've been able to get it to do so. I did prune it earlier on in the year, and it did branch out from sort of those points, which is fantastic, and maybe I need to do that again soon. I don't think it'd be the worst thing for me to do that, because then I could potentially get it to branch out even more and really become like a proper full tree. I think that'd be quite fun. Also, early on in the year, it did have thrips, and it might have had thrips again around the middle of the year. This plant is generally quite prone to thrips, and they're quite hard to see because it is more of a yellowy color than a lot of like the plants I have, and it's variegated, so you don't notice them as much as others. But I don't, as far as I know, believe that it has thrips now, and so that part of the goal, tick, I have done it. Have I stopped neglecting it? Technically no, but I have put it in a position in my home where I can neglect it, and it's fine. So I feel like that is an acceptable answer. Any way I can make my collection lower maintenance, I absolutely will, and semi-hydro has been the answer for so many plants, including this shiveriana. So even though I am still neglecting it, and my goal, I guess, technically hasn't been achieved, I think I still had success here. Another thing I really wanted to do was get my begonia hatacoa silver to start growing well for me. At the beginning of the year, it was looking a little bit sparse. It was definitely not at its best. I think popping it into semi-hydro in 2024 was quite a shock to its system, and so it wasn't doing amazingly back then. And in the several months at the beginning of the year, it was doing quite well until around June time, when we had a bit of a heat wave, and what you're seeing here was the result of that. It had started to like really droop. The leaves had started to go all pinky, which was essentially them dying. Fun, right? And within like 48, 72 hours, this thing, toast. Absolutely gone. Like, it it melted down to nothing, and like when I tried to pull it out to see if I could just chop it back and like keep the roots, no, it was all just absolutely gone. I think the combination of the heat wave making things super thirsty and it being freaking warm in our home, combined with me watering it more regularly and potentially watering it maybe a little bit too much after it had been a little bit on the drier side, caused the roots to just completely rot off. And so this goal was an absolute failure. I did not get this one growing well, and in fact I have killed the plant, and so I don't have anything to show you today. I am a little bit sad about that because it was a really beautiful begonia, lovely and silver. I really liked it, and maybe I'd be tempted to try it again down the line when I'm not sort of like trying to downsize as much. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to save it, and that it does make me a little bit sad, but it's okay, life goes on. It is just what happens, and I can give it another go again later. And then next, I wanted to stop my alocasia regal shield from cycling. It was kind of stuck in that 2-3 leaf club for quite a bit of 2024. It was not growing well, and I really wanted to get this to grow into a big, beautiful, full plant, size it up, and all of that, but mostly stop it cycling. I wanted it to grow multiple leaves. And in the first 6 months of the year, I didn't get it to stop cycling, but I did get it to grow quite a lovely, big, beautiful leaf, and so I was really proud of that and happy with how it had grown. And so in the second half of the year, my goal was just to like keep it growing beautifully and big, and I mean ideally stop it cycling, but if it didn't and just gave me big leaf but only had 3 of them, like I would kind of accept that. And now this might look like it has stopped cycling, but in fact I have recently popped it into a pot with a couple of other regal shields that someone sent me because they knew that I was struggling with my regal shield. And the thing is, it hasn't cycled as much, but it also hasn't grown very much. So this is the big, beautiful leaf that it was giving me like around 6 months in. It is still big and beautiful, and it has given me a couple leaves since. This one, and then this one here is like pretty brand new, and that's fantastic. But I'm a little bit scared that now the oldest leaf is this lovely big one, and that the next thing for it to drop off would be that leaf if it continues to cycle. So I am a little bit worried. I have potted it into a bigger vessel because I have heard that is quite good for regal shields. All of my patrons have kind of said, just like keep giving it bigger vessels because it likes to have quite a big root system. And I kind of don't necessarily need it to stop cycling as much now that I have the sort of smaller plants in the pot as well. It kind of gives it that fuller look without the like original main plant actually being that much fuller. So I'm kind of not mad at it. Of course, I would love it to succeed and continue to give me big, beautiful leaves, but if it doesn't, it's not the end of the world. I'm not gonna cry about it. I'll just be glad that it is in now this beautiful like pot full of other ones that can grow big as well. And then my final goal for 2025 was to size up my philodendron ernestii. It was quite small at the beginning of this year. I had it on quite a small front opening moss pole, and it was really loving that. It did do really, really well on that pole. It actually grew over the top of it quite a bit before I decided to size up the pole, but I think in like April, May time, I sized it up onto a bigger front opening moss pole, and it was doing fantastic. It grew to the top of that pole so quickly, and so 6 months ago I knew I had to get it on to an extension, and I did, and it has done so frickin' well. And yes, it does look a little bit sparse. It has lost quite a few bits on the bottom, sort of the leaves. I think they got burnt. They're just like, it is a little bit of a sensitive philodendron, but otherwise I have been able to get it to size up quite nicely. It did have one huge, beautiful leaf, bigger than actually all of the ones on here, but unfortunately when I was watering this in the shower the other day, it fell over and that leaf snapped, and unfortunately I had to take it off, but it is just doing phenomenally. This was the other leaf that broke in the fall, and you can see the sort of rips in it, but it is still just putting out new leaf after new leaf. Unfortunately, this one I believe is getting a little bit sunburnt because this one is the only one in front of the grow light, but holy cow, this one has just absolutely loved moss pole life. You can see all of those amazing roots in the pole are just fantastic, and it is getting to the top of this one as well. I did recently put a bit more moss in the top, and so hopefully, as long as I keep this one moist, which it currently isn't, again, it lives in the office theme, but if I can keep this moist, I think I'll be happy with it, and potentially even chopping and extending in the future wouldn't be that bad of an idea as well, because the bottom of it is so sparse at this point. Most of the plant is kind of, I guess, so if I chopped it, I'd be chopping it there. So a good chunk of the plant is above that point. Maybe I'll wait until it's closer to the top of this one before doing so, because then I can just take the bottom pole and put it on the top, like take all the plant out of it and stuff. So I feel like that would make the most sense for this one, but I am so pleased at the sort of size up between the beginning of the year and now, because it is such a huge stark difference. Like, it is just phenomenal. And like, when philodendrons size up nicely, oh, it is the best feeling in the world. And this one has just been really chill at that and done a really good job. Also, I'm pretty sure this one did have thrips as well during the year. That's like a fairly common thing. Like in general, a lot of the plants in my home do just get pests every now and then. And so I have since treated it, and it has been pretty happy since. So I'm not worried about it. And again, I can't wait to see what this one is looking like in another like 6 years time, because I think it's going to explode even further. So there we go. Those were all my goals for 2025. And in general, I feel like I did a pretty good job, even if I wasn't like actively looking at these things every week, making sure I was giving them 100% the best possible chances. I think most of these plants still did pretty well, and I'm very happy with the sort of growth that I have gotten from them in this time. So I really don't know if I will do another goals video next year. I feel like since I'm rarely like active with my goals, I'm not checking on these plants weekly to try and make sure that they're doing well. I don't know if I'll do a goals video. I might still do a video where I take 10 plants and I want to see how far they've gotten, because I think having the footage from 12 months ago and 6 months ago and seeing that sort of progress has been really, really nice and important to like see and like feel the success, because when you're looking at your plants every single day, you're not seeing these sort of successes in the same way. It's much more gradual. And so being able to look back at that footage and like see the stark differences is quite a nice feeling. And so maybe I will do something like that in 2026 instead of making it like a strict goal. But there we go. That's what's happened with these plants over the last 12 months. I hope you enjoyed it. Before I go, I want to say a huge thank you to the newest members of my Good Growing fam over on Patreon, James and Michaela. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you love all the bonus content, live chats, all of that sort of fun stuff. It is all there. If anyone else is interested in joining, the lowest tier is £3 a month, and for that you get the bulk of everything, including live chats, bonus content, polls, access to the Discord server, all of that sort of fun stuff, as well as generally kind of more access to me. I feel like I really form a relationship with a lot of my patrons, and I get to know them and their collections, and I really enjoy that part of it. So that is there, linked down below in the description if you are interested. You can also ask for it as a gift. As well, you can gift a Patreon membership, which is friggin' fantastic. Highly recommend. It is there in the description if you want it, but totally don't worry. If that is not your thing and you're not interested, that is fine as well. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up down below and leave a comment on other houseplanty things you'd like me to talk about in the future. Do you want to see more goal videos from me, or are they just a bit, like, pointless at this point? Let me know. I would love to hear your opinion, and subscribe for more. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to keep growing. Bye!